All right, Eve, I think we're live. Say hi. We'll let some people trickle in here. We only got one viewer still. All right. Well, this is being recorded already, so I'm gonna go ahead and start answering some questions. We'll be doing that for the next 2 hours. So you guys wanna participate, go to the Google Plus page. And if you watch the broadcast from the Google Plus page, you can actually submit questions through there. So that's probably the best way to do it. All right. Oh, you want to go? All right, so the first question comes from, where's the Brian Aurora. He says, I struggle a lot with drawing faces and human from memory, but when I'm looking at a figure, I can draw it pretty well. This doesn't only apply to figures, it applies to everything. I just can't draw from imagination. Okay, so basically you're saying you can copy from a picture, but you can't draw from your mind. So that means that you don't have the figure memorized, because you're able to copy something, but you're not able to make it up. The only way you can make something up is if you understand and if you have complete knowledge of that subject. You know, if you don't know what a specific model of a car looks like, there's no way you can draw it. You don't even know what it looks like. So if you don't know every part of the body, there's no way you're going to be able to draw the body. So if you can't draw from imagination, that just means you don't have complete knowledge of the subject that you're trying to draw. It also might mean that you just don't, you're not completely familiar with fundamentals. Like if you don't know how to depict form in space. If you're copying from a photo, it's a lot easier to depict form because you're analyzing the shapes in the photo, and then you're just copying them. But if you have to create a form from your imagination, you have to really understand how that works in space. So it really just means that there's a lack of knowledge. So the answer to that would be to study for the fundamentals and study the subject that you're trying to draw. All right, next question from Dolores. She says, hello, your app Skelly is the best. We'll make an app on muscles. We're trying to make realistic muscles that you can deform in real time on a mobile phone, but it's very difficult. I mean, processing power to compute every single muscle of the body. Eva, stop. To compute every muscle to deform accurately is very difficult. So it's not going to be anytime soon, but we're trying to work on it. But thanks. Glad you like the current app. All right, next question comes from Graham Marshall. It says, hey Stan, love your videos. Thank you. They have really helped me progress. I still have a bit of trouble getting shading right and distinguishing shadows, midtones, and reflected light. Any tips? Also, how do I improve my proportions when I draw figures? Okay, so you're talking about the elements of light on form. You're just having a hard time distinguishing between them. Okay. Okay, well, so first of all, make sure you select good photos, because if you select photos like a photo that has flash lighting, it's not going to have many shadows. It's mostly going to be halftones and highlights because the light is coming directly from the viewer and all the shadows are going to be in the back. So don't choose those, otherwise you're not going to see any shadows. If you have a good photograph with a lot of contrast, you got shadow on one side, light on the other side, and you still can't see the differences between all those, maybe take it into Photoshop And there's some filters you can apply just to kind of help you see the values better. What is it? I know the palette knife filter in Photoshop is cool. I used that a lot to when I would if I was doing a painting, I would take it into Photoshop, apply the palette knife filter, and it would really help me see like blocky values. It simplifies everything into just little graphic shapes, and so that might help you see values better, so there's not real subtle gradations everywhere, because that's difficult to see. Other than that, probably the best way to start learning that stuff is to draw from life, because I think it's actually easier to see light if you're looking at an object in real life, if you're looking directly at it. And you also have control of the light source, so you know exactly where the light source is coming from. So if you have like a little sculpture of a head, or like you buy a bust, or your friend can sit, or your boyfriend, girlfriend can sit for you, put a light source, from the side, above, kind of in the front, and you'll know, a really strong light bulb, and you know exactly where the light is coming from. Just try to observe the shadows and halftones and highlights from that. You guys having trouble?
Yeah, YouTube comments is in chat right now.
YouTube comments? Okay, so we're saying that YouTube comments are disabled. That's fine. That's fine. If you guys want to comment, go to Google Plus and ask questions there instead of YouTube. Let's see. Done. And if you actually watch the broadcast on Google Plus, there's an area where you can actually input the question. So that's the best way to do it. All right. This one's from Malgorzata. Let's see. She says, I like to ask how to learn to see the figure. I mean, when I compare my gesture or boxes drawing with yours, I often catch myself asking, where does he see this? My boxes show sometime in another direction. How to train the eyes. Okay, so you look at a human body and you have a hard time seeing things as simple forms. So you ask yourself, where does he see this? Yeah, it's not actually there. I'm not actually seeing those lines. I'm imagining complex forms as simple forms. That's much harder to do than it seems. If you just, if you say, no, just simplify this. It's easy. You think it's easy, but it's actually very difficult, and you kind of just have to learn perspective. Start with simple forms and draw them as simple forms, like furniture, buildings, geometric shapes. If you can find those around you, draw those first and try to draw those accurately. Because if you can't draw those, you're not going to be able to draw a pelvis as a box. There's so many more levels of complexity to that. So just take it one step at a time. If you can't see the pelvis as a box yet, don't beat yourself up over it. That's a very difficult thing. But also knowing anatomy will help. Learn the landmarks. Start with the bony landmarks. So, like for example, if you're drawing the pelvis as a box, if you find the aces points, those are the little dot, kind of like the bony protrusions on the front of the pelvis. If you see those, you could see the angle between them, and that really helps you figure out the rest of the box. Also, I usually try to just see the front of the body, the side of the body, and I know the body is curved, but usually you could see a pretty flat plane in the front, and then an area where it really turns, and then you kind of have a flat area on the side again, and then it turns real quick. So there's areas where they're flatter. That'll show you that these are side planes, front plane, back plane. And then when you're simplifying them, you just have to make that a lot more extreme. Just put a real sharp edge between all the planes. It's a difficult problem, and that's one that Marshall Vandruff is going to help you guys with. He's working on a course on perspective. Not sure exactly when that's going to be out, but we're working on it. So that'll definitely help you when that comes out. Okay, next question is from Sina Seedorf. Hi Stan, any tips on how to draw shadows? Do you start with the core shadows or midtones? Don't start with midtones. Midtones are details within the lights. They're not shadows. So I like to start with core shadows because they define the edge of the shadow. So if you draw the core shadow, then all you have to do is you just fill in the side of the shadow, and then you have shadow and light. And you see me in pretty much every demo I do in my video from light, and I'll have two simple values, no details, until my whole page is covered with either shadow or light. Then I go within each family, either the shadow family and the light family, and I add the details within them. So within the shadows, I'll add the occlusion shadows. Those are like the really deep, dark accents. And then within the lights, I'll add the halftones and the highlights. But without separating those two families first, it's really hard to keep that organized. Okay, cool. Good question. Oh, crap. Forgot to select that. All right, next question. How many black shirts do you have? I have two. I have two black shirts. Well, I have more than two, but two that I use for the videos. I'll just alternate. I only use them for my videos, so I'll wear them like once a week. Done with that question. Next one. Let's see, from John Guy. Hey Stan, your anatomy course is excellent. I've studied anatomy for years, and I'm still learning a lot. Where do you find so much in-depth information? Okay, well, the first step of making my videos is a lot of research. We spend at least a week or two on research. A lot of it, before we even do research, I'll just kind of put in a bunch of my own notes, things that I know and have learned, and then we kind of fill in the gaps from a lot of books, some videos, mostly books. So if you actually go to proko.com/books, I have, I don't know, like maybe 4 books on anatomy on that page. And a lot of it comes from there. Goldfinger's book, Richet's book. Richet is spelled R-I-C-H-E-R. A bunch of other ones, but those are the 2 main ones that we use. And then Google search. If there's anything really detailed that we need to know, we'll do Google search, and then we have Gray's Anatomy that just goes into way more detail than artists need to know. But yeah, there's, every muscle and bone has certain information that's critical to know for artists, and so we get that in first, and then I kind of just ask myself, what else do artists need to know to draw these forms, and we fill in the gaps. Cool. Next question from Taro Tanaka. How can I train my eyes to be able to see values? The way to train your eye to see anything is to just observe those things often and a lot and for a long time. So if you're trying to see values correctly, every day, do a value study. Spend half an hour on a value study and try to get your values accurate. It's basically just about making your eye, it's actually your brain, force your brain to make a decision about a value relationship, and then check if you're correct. Make another observation, make a decision, check if you're correct. That's just through drawing. that's the way you learn anything, is to do something and then get feedback on it. And you do it again, get feedback, and you slowly tune your eye to be more accurate that way. It's no different from swinging a baseball bat and hitting the ball. You swing, if you miss, that's feedback. Okay, that was too high, too low, too slow, too fast, whatever. You get feedback. Thousands of times doing that, you really tune your arms and your mind to hit the ball every time. It's the same with seeing values, seeing edges, seeing shape, seeing proportion, all that stuff. You just constantly have to make those decisions, get feedback, accurate feedback, and do it again, and keep doing that. So, next question. Hello, Stan. Could you talk about materials? Yes, I can. Next, no, just kidding. What do you want to know about materials? There's so much information. If you could maybe submit a follow-up question on that. I have 2 videos on materials. If I talk about it right now, I'll just be repeating everything from those videos, unless you have a specific question. So you can go to proko.com/materials1 or proko.com/materials2, and those are my 2 videos on materials. Next. From Jasmine Wangus. Hi Stan, if I'm doing a comic page, how much of a character's anatomy should I incorporate into pages where common actions like walking or ... guess starting to fight occur? What? When do I simplify more to the side of gesturing? Okay, sorry, I gotta read that one again. How much of a character's anatomy should I incorporate into pages where common actions like walking or starting to fight occur? So basically anatomy versus gesture. I think that's what you're asking. When do you draw gesture and when do you actually draw anatomy? It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to figure out the pose, just draw gestures. Don't worry about details of anatomy yet. Just draw quick gestures, and then once you have a nice gesture figured out, then on top of that you can add anatomy. It's like layers. You don't have to do one or the other completely separate. You can start with one and then you can add the other on top. Or if maybe your comic pose is really focused on anatomy, like this, it's like a really ripped person, maybe start with just like anatomical drawings and then do gestural tracings on top of that, and figure out maybe where you can improve the gesture. And then once you see where you can improve the gesture, do another one and with the better gesture of it. So yeah, just separate. You don't have to know when to do one or the other. You can do both. You should do both. Every drawing or figure drawing you do, you should be thinking about gesture and anatomy. If you have to separate those steps, then separate them. Cool, good question. Next question comes from Argentina. It's a draftsman. What?
Have you been selected?
Yes. Yeah, I'm selecting questions. Cool. Draftsman 573. Hi Stan, cheers from Argentina. Thanks for your premium course and an atelier with live models that I found in my city really boost me up quite a few levels. I want to ask you how to train creative drawing and learning to use color in drawing and painting. What? What?
He wants to learn how to color.
What?
I think he wants to learn how to color.
How to color? I want that. How to train creative drawing and learning to use color in drawing and painting. Okay, so you want to learn color theory. I think the best way to learn color is to draw from nature or paint from nature. That's the way I learn color. Is get a plein air easel, go out outside, find something beautiful, landscape, and try to paint it. Try to mimic the colors. That's like one of the hardest things with color is to mimic reality outside. indoor lighting is a little bit easier. You got a direct light source. You don't have much atmospheric perspective. It's a lot more controlled. When you go outside, things get crazy. You got real long distances. Things slowly shift in color as they go away from you. The color of the sun can change a lot. If you go out during the sunset, you get very different colors. I think, yeah, landscape painting is one of the best ways to learn color. But on top of that, just learn color theory. Learn how color and light works. Get James Gurney's book on color and light. Awesome book. It gives you a lot of tips. Probably much better than I could help you with right now with any specifics. Still life. If going outdoors is not plausible, or if it's too difficult right now, maybe you need to start with something a little easier. Start with still life. Set up something on a table, a bunch of fruits. It doesn't have to be complicated. Get a bouquet of flowers, some fruits and food, toys, and just paint that. And try to observe the color, mix it, put it down. It's just like the question I had earlier about seeing value. You have to just constantly be making those observations and do it over and over again. Next question from Dieter Durock. Do you plan to have a skelly app with muscles? As a Christmas gift to you, I've started to make from French subtitles for your anatomy videos. The most difficult to translate your jokes. Okay, so the muscles question I already answered. We're working on it, but it's very difficult, so it probably won't be anytime soon. Before that, we're probably going to have a mannequin version where it's surface forms, but it's not every muscle deforming correctly. It's just simple forms, and those will deform as well. But and that's probably better for concepting anyways, to get simple forms, and then you can modify those. And then as far as the subtitles, that's cool. So you translated them for me. I think I got a message from you about that. We'll have to. We'll talk privately. From Rami Kamal. How do you draw fat people? There are a lot of tutorials on muscles, but not about fat. Well, I talk a little bit about it in the premium videos on the muscles. Like, I go into physique variations in the premium lessons on like abs, obliques, pecs, and every muscle I do afterwards. We're going to go over physique variations. So we got really skinny people. How does that muscle look on skinny people? How does it look on average, buff, or overweight? And really, it's just, you have to learn the muscle underneath, because that does affect the forms. I mean, unless it's like, really obese, then it's just rolls, and you can make that stuff up. You can play with those shapes so much. Nobody's gonna say that no, that's wrong. That's not anatomically correct. But if it's kind of within the range of normal overweight people, then you have to learn the muscles underneath, because they still do affect the surface forms. And then you just have to learn where the common areas of fat are stored on the body. There's a really good page in Goldfinger's book, his anatomy book, where he has a diagram of fat placement on the body. So study that diagram, look at pictures of overweight models, and just study how does the shape of the rib cage area look on an overweight person versus an athletic person, and really observe the differences in the volumes. And just studying those and looking at the differences will help you make, do those drawings in your figure drawings. Hope that answers the question. Susie Tang. Is it possible to lose your passion for art if you were to take up a job in the art field? If so, when does art stop becoming something enjoyable and start becoming a chore when you work with it? Yeah, it's possible, of course. If it becomes boring and repetitive, that's when at least I would lose interest, because I do it because it's creatively satisfying for me. I like to create new things. I like to learn new things, and so if it just becomes boring, I probably won't want to do it anymore. But if there was a job that would force me to do the same thing over and over again, I'd probably look for a way out and try to do something different in art. You know, think about why you liked art in the first place, like what got you into it, and see if you are currently doing that. The reason you started art, are you doing that now? And if you're not, that's probably why you're not interested in it. So maybe on the side, do things that still inspire you about art. Yeah. Fortunately, I can't relate to that, so I can't like share personal experiences. But hope you get through it. Hey Proko, any advice on how to pick a decent color palette for skin and other textures? Color palette, you mean like specific color, like tubes of colors, or a palette? You probably mean the color, like specific tubes. I do have advice, and it's not the one you want. Not the advice that you're looking for. You're asking for specific tubes of paint, and my advice is not to think of formulas for skin color, because it doesn't. Your paintings are just going to look cartoony. It's just going to be peach or brown or whatever race you're drawing. It's just going to be that color, and it's probably not going to look very realistic. Skin naturally absorbs the light around in the environment. If you look at my face right now, you could probably see the entire rainbow of color on my face. You know, I got cool light coming in from the window right now. I got reds right here coming from my shirt. I've got greens right here because of the hair, probably a little bit from that tree over there. My skin is reflecting my entire environment. You can't just buy tubes of paint that will make the skin for you. You have to observe the person you're drawing, or observe the environment and mix those colors yourself. Otherwise, your painting is going to look really boring and unrealistic. So there is no formula for skin tones. There's tutorials out there that show you formulas, and they'll get you good results, but they're not. It's not what you want. If you want to draw realistic skin tones, study the light and paint that, and learn how to mix color on your own, so you don't have to buy tubes pre-mixed. Next question from DJ Joe. One of my goal is as an artist, I want to be a comic artist professionally. What knowledge or skill do I need to create my own comics? Well, you need to learn how to draw, because with comics, the subject could be anything. You might need to draw environments with perspective in it. You might need to draw superheroes with anatomy. If you're coloring your comics, you're going to need to know color theory. You definitely need to know composition, because comics are all about composition and storytelling. So you pretty much have to learn everything that an artist needs to learn. You just have to learn different materials. You are using the same concepts of drawing and painting. You're just using pen and ink or digital, whatever you're doing, whatever tool you're using to depict that. You're not using oil paint, so you don't need to learn how to use oil paint. You don't need to know how to use watercolors. You need to learn how to use inks. But as far as fundamental concepts of drawing, you need to learn all of them. There's no easy solution for you. Next question from Maria. Just heard about you literally 10 minutes before you started. Literally 10 minutes before you started this live Q&A. That's great. While searching for online drawing courses for my teenage son, tell me a little bit about what you offer that differs you from other online courses, please. Thanks. I think the main thing is the tutorials are fun to watch, and they go into more depth than most online tutorials. Sorry, I can't get over that. That's awesome. But yeah, they're fun to watch. I try to add humor to the lessons, and I try to make all lessons really complete. No tricks, no gimmicks, really, core concepts that, traditional artists have passed on through the ages. Things you really need to learn to have a long career in art. And try to make it fun so that it's easier to get through. Cool. Thank you, Maria. Let's see. Next question is Super Jeffo Man. As an artist, what has been the most difficult challenge you've had to overcome? Oh, let's see. As an artist, probably making a living off of it. That's the hardest part. I still don't make a living off of being an artist. I make a living off being a teacher. So still haven't figured it out. I mean, I used to kind of make a living off of being an artist. As I sold paintings through galleries, but it was like just enough to kind of get by. I've always loved business as well, and so I would have startups on the side that I'd be working on. And then my latest is Proko, which is has been successful, and so that's been helping. But yeah, so as far as the hardest challenge to overcome is getting through that making money part, because it's so competitive. So many people want to make a living off drawing and painting because it's fun. It's just really hard to get a lot of work, but it's possible if you work really hard and you really want it. You can get there. You just got to make sure you figure out ways to get past the learning stages, because that's a long period of time, probably at least a decade before you could really make a living off of it. So that's the hardest part. Cool. Next question from Mike Giordana. How do you combine the Loomis body construction method with the more academic and accurate way of drawing? I got a sneeze coming up in here. At school, I've been taught to draw exactly what I see, measuring and not really understanding perspective construction that much. Construction method, more academic, accurate way. Oh, so you're saying construction versus drawing what you see and measuring. Okay. Well, yeah, okay. The way I did it was, first I learned the way you're learning is to draw exactly what you see. You measure things and you draw it exactly like it is from reference. That is a problem when you want to invent, because if you are not seeing anything to measure, you can't draw anything, right? You haven't trained your ability to create something out of nothing. And so you have to start practicing construction, using perspective, simple shapes, combining them, and just trying to train your brain to imagine things, and then developing the ability to put that on paper. then once you've got both of them, you can start combining them by, I think you'll just naturally start combining them, really. I think maybe you just haven't learned how to construct yet, and so you don't know how to combine that with measuring. But once you learn how to draw from imagination and to construct forms, you'll naturally start drawing forms when you're measuring. I mean, at least it was natural for me when I draw a portrait, I see the forms, and I kind of start indicating those forms on the page as I'm measuring. As far as how, I think you just have to learn both, and then it just kind of happens. Yeah. Next question from Art Pro. Ooh. Hi Proko, greetings from Spain. I want to ask you, what kind of drawing do you enjoy more doing? What kind of drawing? As far as subject matter, figure drawing, portrait drawing, I really like drawing people. What kind of drawing? Probably painting. The painting kind of drawing. I enjoy that a lot. I enjoy quick sketch. I love quick sketch from life. So you got a model, you got 5 minutes, draw a gesture, draw some simple constructions. That's really fun because it's like a little challenge. You know, you only got 5 minutes and you got to create a real nice picture in a limited time. So it's exciting. So I like doing that. Cool. Thanks, Art Pro from Spain. Nikki Niemeyer. Hey Stan, what do you do before drawing? Are there any warm-ups that you help getting in the mood? Yeah. In school, right before a model showed up or before class would start, I would just draw circles. Just like fill a page with circles, curves, shade, big blocks of form. That just gets my hand warmed up. You know, if your hand is tight and you're not thinking about, being loose, your drawings kind of start looking stiff, and maybe you'll draw like little dashes everywhere instead of big sweeping curves. Your strokes won't look clean and dynamic. So yeah, I just warmed up my hand. Sometimes I would try to invent, train my creative side and just, try to imagine a pose in my head and draw that pose. It really depends on how much time I had to warm up. If it was only like 5 minutes, I would just fill a page with circles. If I have half an hour, yeah, try inventing a body or a face. And yeah, stretch your shoulders and your hands. Jumping jacks. Preslav Kostov. Do you think drawing from imagination, like Frazetta, is a key skill for successful illustrators? Yes. Yeah, drawing from imagination is a key skill. Because even if you do have reference to copy from, if you're able to draw from imagination, you can make changes. And you can use your reference rather than copying your reference. You got illustrators like Norman Rockwell, who, like every single one of his paintings, he had a reference for it, right? There's even a book, I forgot what it's called, but it's a book where they show Norman Rockwell's painting and then they show you the photograph he used. It's a really good book, and it shows you how much he changed. It's such a great book. Without the ability to invent, he wouldn't have been able to make those changes and those improvements on the photo. He would have just been copying the whole time. I mean, a lot of people can just copy something, but if you're creating something, you got to be able to improve it. Yeah, thanks. Good question. Death by Reindeer asks, will you be doing fabric videos? Also, do you have any basic tips on drawing fabric? I will be doing fabric videos, but I don't know when. I don't have any plans for them yet. Probably after I've done this anatomy and advanced portrait and a lot of other stuff. Then I'll do fabric. But basic tips. Yes. Okay. So fabric will have points at which it's called tension points, and your folds or your wrinkles will go between those tension points. Like, for example, my arm. There's a lot of tension in the armpit right now because the fabric is stuck on it, and so you have a lot of folds coming out from the armpit, and they're wrapping over my arm. If I pick up the shirt like this, notice the sweeping folds from the two tension points of my fingers. So tension points and connect the folds between tension points, and then there's a good book on drapery. I think I have it on proko.com/books, and she talks about, I think, the 7 different types of folds. Learn them, and you'll be able to invent them in your own drawings. It's basic stuff. Ivan Tulau, what's the difference between spiral fold, zigzag fold, and half-log fold? Okay, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about right now. Those are 3 folds. So spiral fold, you're testing my knowledge here. Spiral fold is the one I was talking about where it's going around the cylinder of my arm. It's kind of a spiral, right? Zigzag is kind of like, you know, when on the bottom of your jeans, if you got baggy pants, you've got like compressed fabric, and it kind of zigzags down as the fabric kind of folds onto itself. So zigzag is exactly what it sounds. It's just a zigzag. Half lock fold. Half lock. Oh, yeah. Can you bring me my charger? My battery's dying. It's I'm not really thinking. Half lock fold is I think it's kind of like a diaper fold. It's locked halfway. You can look it up in the book, but I believe it's where you've got like 2 tension points, and if the points are far enough apart, you got a diaper fold, kind of like what I was doing. And if you bring them in close enough, it creates a little indentation in the middle, and I believe that's a half lock. Double check that, please. All right. Thanks for testing me. Next question, Omar Jamal. Hi, Proko. Do the original pose set pictures have one light source on the model or multiple? I'm asking because the value of some pictures reflect light are identical to the area that is direct light. The new pose sets have one light source, it seems. Yeah, the older pose sets, the ones that I've had that are part of the 5-pack, those were done in my bedroom. Like the room, it was a small room, and so I had a white backdrop, and there were lights on the white backdrop. And so because there wasn't enough distance from the models, some of that light from the backdrop bounced and came back onto like the back of the model's body. And so it was pretty strong. For the newer pose sets, I'm renting an actual studio that's got a much larger space, and so the models can be further away from the background. So there's a lot less reflected light. It's a little bit better that way. But the references I had before, they're still good. You just have to, if you're learning how to shade, just darken a little bit of the reflected light in the back, and it'll look a little bit better in your drawings. But yeah, good question. There's one main light source. It's just that they were so close to the backdrop that the reflected light was very close to the main light intensity. Warner King, hey, your videos are very thorough. Do you foresee the courses on the extremities spanning the same amount of time as torso? Would you agree that arms and legs are less complex from start to finish? How long does an average video take to produce? Okay, yeah, the extremities, arms and legs. Yeah, it'll be less. The torso course had the first like 5 or 6 videos were just general information about anatomy. They weren't even part of torso. They were like types of joints and like types of muscles or whatever. And so those will also just be applied to the arms and legs. And so I'll just be able to jump right into the bones and muscles of the arms and legs. And yeah, I think those will be a lot quicker. How long does the average video take to produce? Each video probably about a month. We have to overlap. We're working on multiple videos at the same time. So one video is in research phase. Another video is in script writing stage. Another video is in production stage, where we're actually creating visuals and editing the video. So we have to overlap, otherwise there would just be a giant gap between. And sometimes there is, you can tell, sometimes we go like a week or 2, sometimes 3 without publishing a new video, but that's usually if there's like some kind of issue we have to deal with, like with 3D models or something. But yeah, they take a while to produce, so we have to overlap. Akumaya Williams, can your tips and techniques also apply to digital art? For example, your series on how to draw facial features. Absolutely. The only thing from that course that you won't be able to apply is like how to sharpen your pencil, because you don't want to cut your stylus with a razor blade. But all the, I basically teach the Loomis method. It's how to construct a form. You can do the exact same thing with a digital pen. The anatomy of each facial feature, that applies to digital art. All that stuff, yeah, you can apply it digitally. All the fundamentals that I try to teach can be applied to any medium, whether you're doing watercolor, oil painting, digital, charcoal, graphite, comic books, whatever you're doing, whatever the medium or the tool is, doesn't matter. The tool is a separate thing that you learn. But the way to draw and the way to depict form and light and gesture and perspective, all that stuff applies across the board. Yeah, good question, thanks. Does your wife, next question from David Rodriguez, does your wife draw like you? No, she doesn't draw. She likes to dance. She does accounting and psychology, stuff like that. Helps with day stuff of the business. Francisco Castro, does exist a step-by-step process to learn how to improve your art? I mean, what do I need to study? What needs to be my priority? And do you recommend any book or artist to learn with? A step-by-step process to improve your art. Kind of. There's basically a bunch of fundamental concepts you need to learn, but you kind of have to learn all of them. There's not like a series that you have to follow. I mean, it's basically the same things that I'm always repeating. Learn gesture, learn structure and perspective, learn how light works so you can shade, learn perspective, composition, all that stuff. Those are the steps. And you have to kind of attack those individually. You can't do it all at once. It's too many things to balance if you're just starting to learn. So if you're just starting, focus on training your eye to see and your hand to move. Your hand is going to probably not really do what you want it to do at first. It's not going to have those smooth strokes going exactly where you want them to go. So you have to practice that. Practice judging values, judging shapes and proportions so that you can draw things accurately from your reference. But that just takes time, many, many years to train your eye and your hand. While you're training your eye and your hand, you have to be learning something as well. So learn perspective, learn, all those things that I just mentioned. If you need help going through all those things, go to proko.com/library. And at the very top, there's a section called Start Here. those are all the fundamental videos that I've made. Those are probably the ones you want to start watching first. I'm also working on a beginner's course on drawing. Kind of just started working on it though, so don't get too excited. Maybe like 2017 or something. But yeah, there's already a bunch of stuff for beginners on Proko.com, so you could start learning now. And any books that I recommend, yeah, Proko.com/books, it's all in there. Okay, done with that one. From Kiara Duffy. When it comes to animation, do you prefer 2D or 3D? Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know if I could choose. I really like both. I'm sorry, I can't choose one. They're different. Like, I like different things about each one. I love the traditional aspects of 2D and how the animators can really pull things, and I mean, you can do that with 3D as well, but I don't think it looks as good as 2D does when you do that sort of thing. But with 3D, you really get into that world, like with a lot of the Pixar movies that, Finding Nemo, it's like you feel like you're underwater because it looks so real, but the characters are still very exaggerated and obviously not real. And so I kind of like that believable world part of 3D. Yeah, I like both. I don't want to choose one. David K, tell us a story. Oh God. Tell us a story of a moment that deals with art drawing that helped develop your skill. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Okay, tell us a story of a moment that deals with art drawing that helped develop your skill. Was it an artist or a picture, something that helped you get closer to where you are today? A story. Develop my skill. Oh, jeez. Putting me on the spot. Did I just make something up? No.
What got you into drawing in the first place?
Is that the question?
No, like what?
What got me into drawing?
Just like a story.
Yeah, a story. Something that helped me improve my skills. An artist or a picture? I mean, geez, I just went to school and I learned from my teachers. I don't have any interesting story, at least not that I can come up with right now on the spot. I mean,
Okay.
just what?
This is from the same person.
Same person?
Yeah.
Another story. Oh, tell us about your art career during high school. Was it positive or a struggle? Well, I didn't really have a career in high school. I was just studying drawing and painting. But I would take classes on like weekends and at night. Because yeah, when I was in high school, I already started studying at the Watts Atelier. And so I had to take, in my spare time, I'd take classes. I would go plein air painting on weekends and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I just did whatever I felt like doing. Like I took a plein air class and I didn't even bring an easel to class. I didn't know I was supposed to bring all this stuff. I probably didn't look at the supply list. And so I had to build an easel outdoors in class with my, someone helped me. We got like a cardboard box and like put it on a lap and secured my painting onto a cardboard box. So yeah, there's a story, but sorry, I'm not good at stories. Hi Proko, what are alternatives for life drawing, like of form models? Because in my city there are no life drawing classes. Alternatives are Well, you can draw your friends, but I mean, they probably won't want to get naked for you. But you could draw like their face, you know. Yeah, ask your friend, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your parents, whoever, to sit down and for an hour and draw from them. Another thing is sculptures. Maybe you have a museum somewhere near you. You can go draw in the museum if there's a sculpture. Study the masters. That's a good one. So try to copy master paintings by artists you like. Try to mimic them as best as you can. Make them like absolute replicas. Figure out what it is that they're doing that you're not doing when you're copying them. So when you copy, like just hold them side by side and just figure out what is the difference. Like, why are you not able to do exactly the same thing as them, and just keep doing that. And you'll just learn from from mimicking. Then you'll have to take it a step further and try to be able to do that on your own without copying somebody. But first step is mimicking somebody else. But yeah, I mean, drawing from life, you don't have to have a model. You can draw inanimate objects as well. That helps. And then if you want to draw a nude figure, well, then photos will be your only other option if you don't have life drawing classes. So proko.com/poses. I got a lot of poses of naked people for you. Not that way. Warner King, again, yay. You've made some references to comic artists such as Dale Cohen. I have. Okay, are you a comic enthusiast, fanboy? Which artist influences your work besides Loomis Bridgman et al.? Who was the last artist that made you audibly go, wow? I've never really read comics as a kid. I was more into fine art and animation. That was where I was excited. Which artists influence your work besides? A lot of painters influenced my work. Yeah, most of my studying as a student, I studied a lot of painters. Loomis and Bridgman, those were kind of, I didn't study them for my own work. I just studied them to learn concepts and then move on. But for my own work, I would study artists like Morgan Weisling, Mian Situ, Z.S. Liang, Repin, Repin. Ilya Repin, Russian artist, like one of the best ever. Recent artist that made me say, wow. Oh, there is one. I forgot his name, though. I think he's on my Instagram, though. Hold on. Let me check my Instagram. Take me a few seconds. Okay. Low battery, whatever. Oh, look at the view count go down. Aaron Westerberg is awesome. He's a friend of mine. Westerberg is great. Arnold Schwarzenegger is not an artist. Oh, okay, this guy. Okay, Benjamin Bjorklund. His stuff is awesome. You spell his last name Bjorklund. Bjorklund. He's from Sweden. It's benjaminbjorklund.com. But yeah, he's on my Instagram. There's something so awesome about his paintings. I love the style. His edge work is amazing. So if you're having a hard time with edges and you're trying to make your edges more interesting, study this guy. Man, yeah, he's awesome. So yeah, I recently found him and he made me say, wow. Amon Knighton says, a beginner learning figure drawing, I noticed a lot of books and courses start with gesture. Yes. My gestures look terrible. Do I draw gesture until they look good, or should I fill in the gaps with anatomy? How much should I practice gesture versus anatomy? Okay. Do I draw gestures until they look good? Yeah. You don't want to stop drawing gestures. Keep practicing. If it takes you 10 years, keep practicing gesture. But that doesn't mean you can't practice other things as well. I mean, at least the way I learned how to draw was I had like 5 concepts that I was working on at the same time. And like one day I would draw gesture, another day I would try to figure out how to shape, just draw an eyeball and try to make it 3D. Another day I would study Loomis and try to figure out his head structure technique. Another day I would paint and I would try to figure out how to, mix oil paints. I had a lot of things jumping around just because I like to keep things exciting. And eventually all these things kind of come up together. You don't want to master your gesture and be the best gesture artist, and then you realize like, oh crap, it's been 5 years and I haven't learned anything else. You want to bring them all up at the same time. So for like a week full straight, you can practice gesture if you're really into it at the moment. But then go back to learning everything else again. Just kind of go off of what you feel. If you want, if you're getting bored with a topic, don't just keep going with it just because someone told you to. Make sure you come back to it. Don't just ignore it forever. But take a few days off of doing that and do something that's more fun to you, something that you really enjoy. Get your inspiration back up, and then go back and study that thing that you really suck at. But yeah, keep it fun. Don't think it's just either gesture or anatomy. As far as studying goes, you study them all at the same time. I mean, unless you don't really have much time, then you kind of have to focus. But I'm assuming you have time. But you shouldn't fill in the gaps of your gesture problems with anatomy. Like it's not going to work. Your drawings are going to still look stiff. Anatomy doesn't make your drawings not gestural. So. Next question is from Itamar Gutman. Is it possible to reach full artistic potential without receiving formal education, such as studying in an art college or university, but only using books and the internet as your training and peer-reviewed resources? Is it possible? Probably. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think I've met artists that studied from books and maybe a few workshops here and then. Yeah, it's possible. It's harder. It's definitely harder. If you have a teacher that's holding your hand the whole time, they'll tell you exactly what you need to work on because they can see your problems. If you're at home by yourself and you're studying from a video, it's going to help. But if the person's not there to tell you what exactly your mistakes are, you won't get that feedback that's so critical to improving those mistakes. A good way to kind of undo that. A good way to replace that teacher feedback is the communities on like Facebook. So we have a anatomy group, a portrait group, a figure group on Facebook, and just upload your artwork and ask for critiques from the community, and people will tell you what you need to work on. But definitely if you have a teacher that's really focused on you, it's going to be quicker. But it's possible to do it without that. Yeah. You just have to be disciplined. Pete Anderson. When training and studying on your own, what schedule should you follow? What would you suggest? Training, studying on your own. Yeah, these are related questions. So I kind of just said it, like create a schedule such as, let's say you have 5 days a week that you're going to draw for 3 hours a day. It's really not that much. 3 hours times 5 days, that's only 15 hours a week. It's very little. You probably watch more TV per week than that. On average, most people watch more than 15 hours a week. So it's really not that hard to get 15 hours a week in. You should get more than that in. But let's say that's all you got. You got 15 hours a week, 3 hours a day. Okay, on Monday and Wednesday, say you warm up with some gestures for 30 minutes. And then for the rest, the other 2.5 hours, you work on a longer figure drawing. So you have a photo of a figure drawing, you spend 2.5 hours drawing that one figure, and you try to get it down perfect. That's Monday and Wednesday. Tuesday and Thursday, you warm up with, I don't know, some construction. You're practicing mannequinization. And then you work on a longer portrait drawing. Or you try to invent things that day for 2.5 hours. And then on Friday, you do something just fun, something you really love doing. Like if you really love painting mermaids, just painting mermaids, just go and paint mermaids, you know, whatever it is. Just do something fun. That's like your cheat day. And keep changing that up. So you have a warm-up every day, just kind of an exercise, something from my figure course or someone else's course, whatever, just an exercise that somebody tells you to practice. Do that for 30 minutes, and then spend a few hours doing something for a long time, learning how to take a drawing to a complete finish, and change those up. So that's kind of the training schedule that I would suggest. Let's see. Next question from C. Kohler. Do you have tips on drawing eyes? I'm not very good at them. I do. I have a bunch of videos on eyes. Those are like some of the first videos I made. If you haven't seen those, well, probably haven't since you're asking. Go to Google and search for Proko eyes or how to draw eyes, and you will find all my tips on eyes. Pretty much everything I know about drawing eyes are in those 2 videos. So done with that one. Eva's here. You guys, Eva's here. Does anybody have a question for Eva? Little break time.
No questions.
Oh, no questions for Eva. Okay. Sean says, hello, do you have any tip or ways to start landscapes? Landscapes seem to not have a defined structure, and ways to start like the body. Do you recommend any books other than James Gurney's books? Starting a landscape, I always start landscapes with very abstract shapes. So you look at a tree and you just simplify it to like a blob, right? It's not a tree, it's just a shape of a tree. If you're drawing the Christmas tree back there, you just put a triangle in there. And you just like start with very simple very simple graphic shapes, and you try to create a good composition. Make sure things are balanced, and then you start adding detail to it. At least that's how I like to do it. Make sure your design works first, and then you start putting color to give it that depth. Yeah, it's not, I don't do too much with structure with a landscape. Like I don't think about like, you know, the form of the rib cage is like an egg. You know, I don't do that when I'm doing landscape paintings. It's more graphic for me and more about relationships of color and shape. So it's a totally different thought process, and it's great. It's like an escape from the traditional stuff that we're always practicing. Any books other than James Gurney? Oh yeah, Richard Schmidt's Alla Prima. If you don't have that one, just stop what you're doing and go get Richard Schmidt's Alla Prima, #2. He published the second version, which is just an update to the first version. And that pretty much has everything you need to know about landscape painting. So,
Is that?
Yeah.
It looks, I think some people it shows this question first, my favorite. So could you scroll down to the first star?
The bottom?
Yeah, because whenever I do a new start, it prioritizes that first question.
Oh, really?
Got some older questions.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll start with the bottom star.
Yeah.
Why the site doesn't have a sign-in option? It just has subscribe to newsletter button. Am I able to download free giveaways, what you mentioned before anyway?
I think they're asking about the 12 days of Proko.
The 12 days of Proko. Oh, yeah, if you're on the 12 days of Proko, there's no sign-in button on that page, but if you just go to proko.com, you can sign in from there. But if you haven't really purchased anything, there's no reason to sign in. Signing in is just for accessing your purchased content. That makes sense. Like if you just want to watch the free videos, you don't have to sign in. You just go through the library and watch it. But if you go to proko.com/store and you get anything from there, you'll be given a login and you go from there. And then am I able to download the free giveaways that you mentioned before? Well, every day of these 12 days of Proko, we'll be giving something new. So you have to come back to see what every day is. We didn't just launch all 12 days at once. So today, I'm answering your questions. That's today's giveaway. It's kind of just an introduction. But tomorrow we'll have something new, and if you visit proko.com/12 days, there will be instructions on how to get that day's giveaway. So thank you. You think that answered the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Stoop check asks, as an animator, what would you recommend studying which fundamentals the most? Also, how would animators today get work? Okay, I'll just answer the first one first and then read the rest of your question. Gesture. As an animator, you study gesture because gesture is all about the motion of the body and how the shapes relate and flow from one to the other. It's about the pose, body language, and that's pretty much what animation is, except it moves, right? So gesture first, but then don't learn the minimum. Learn what's most important, but also learn everything else. It's gonna help you. A good example for animation is like people think you don't need to learn anatomy if you're an animator. It's like, well, I'm not drawing all these muscles. I'm drawing cartoon shapes. Well, like if you're an animator and you really want to have a job in animation, and let's say they're making a movie like Tarzan, the 2D Tarzan back in the day. If you could buy the Art of Tarzan book, you'll see that all the drawings in the Tarzan movie were anatomically correct. They actually show the final drawing with an overlay within the anatomy. And they show you how, they actually thought about every muscle as they were animating these simple forms. And so, yeah, anatomy will help you with animation. Perspective will help you with animation, and light on form, and gesture, and structure, and composition, and all that stuff will still help you with animation. So if you really want to be one of the best in your industry and make sure that you always have a job, don't look for what do I need to learn? Because I don't want to learn anything else. Don't do that. Keep learning, study everything you can, and then you'll have an advantage over everybody else. Heather Ward says, what would you recommend using to start out with for, oh, I skipped the other, I said I'd come back to his questions. Is there any way I could go back? Do you remember what he said?
Which one?
The one that I just had.
Oh.
There were multiple parts to his question. I'm sorry, you can resubmit or something. What would you recommend using to start out with for gesture drawing? Charcoal pencil, brush pen. Is one better than the other? Example, use pencil, I must be sure of every stroke. No, I don't think it matters. As long as you can use your shoulder and as long as you have control of your stroke, I think you're fine. Gesture isn't about detail. So, like, I remember we did a critique. Marshall Vandruff and I were doing critiques, and somebody asked something similar. And he said, you could do a gesture with a piece of newspaper dipped in ink. And then I challenged him on it, and then he did it, and they looked great. His gestures are amazing. I think if you watch the gesture critique video, you'll see those drawings. So as far as materials on gesture, no, I wouldn't recommend any specific one. Probably just the one you're most comfortable with is good enough. You know, if you're comfortable with ink, do that. If you're comfortable with a pencil, do that. I personally like to train myself with the charcoal pencil and use it overhand so that I'm holding it underneath. Not like I write, but like I paint. And the reason I like to draw that way is because it trains me to paint. I'm drawing like I paint. Because ultimately, I want to paint. I want to be better at painting. And so I want my drawings to help me improve with my paintings. But if that doesn't really matter to you, then just use a number 2 pencil or whatever you're comfortable with. Animanimus, could you create a very in-depth video on the connection of the torso to the hips? The hips are part of the torso. So you're talking about rib cage to pelvis, probably. Okay, so there's multiple parts to connecting the torso to the, or connecting the rib cage to the pelvis. And there's many ways of approaching this. Okay, the first one, okay, watch my bean video, watch my robo bean video, because those are how do you simplify the rib cage and the pelvis and show their motion, and how do you connect them. Then there's going to be the details, because bean and robo bean are just simple forms. The details are what I'm teaching right now in the anatomy course, right? Every muscle between the rib cage and the pelvis will deform as that happens, and you have to know what those volumes are if you want to deform them correctly. We already did the abs. We did that like just a week or 2 ago. The next video is going to be on obliques, so that's the side of the torso. And so, yeah, I will do an in-depth video on that next. That's my next video. So that should help you. And then after that, it's going to be the back, like the erector group in the back. But that doesn't deform as much. It's really the obliques that you're probably looking for, which is next week. So thank you. Chris Tesmer says, hello, Stan. Hello, Chris. Thanks for doing what you do. You're welcome. Do you have any opinions about the Riley method? Sometimes I see them called Riley rhythms of figure drawing. Yeah, I love it. The school I went to, Watts Atelier, was all about the Riley method. And that's pretty much how I trained. It's about rhythms. It's about connecting the shapes that you see with rhythms, and building from simple shapes to more complex shapes. Yeah, my opinion is it's great. It's very similar to the gesture lesson that I went over, except the gesture lesson that I have is kind of a combination between a lot of techniques. You got stuff from Glenn Vilppu, the Riley method, a little bit of stuff that I learned from Steve Houston. It's just kind of a compilation of concepts. These methods are really just like narrow windows to the major concepts. So, like Riley rhythms, it's just gesture. So there's, don't overthink it. But the Riley method has other things to it, like the way he approaches values. It's not just about Riley rhythms. Riley has things about all forms, about values and paint. He even has like a color palette and painting and stuff. But yeah, I like it. It's great. There's not much information out there about it, but I think there's a blog. If you look for like Riley method references or resources or something, it'll probably come up. Email me if it doesn't. Yeah, let her out. Time is it? 4:21. We got like 40 minutes left, you guys. Question. Don't see who this one's. It's from Winter in Berlin. Have you ever had a person or teacher who was really brilliant at what he did, but gave you one of the worst advices that absolutely didn't work for you and your personal work? I don't think so. Worst advice? No, nothing that I could really think of right now. And if they did give me bad advice, I'd probably like just forgot about it immediately. There was no advice that I got that I followed for a long time, and then I realized that it was bad advice. The teachers that I studied with were really good teachers, and so there was nothing that they really said ever that would like lead me to the wrong path. At least not that I know yet. Maybe they have, and I just haven't realized it yet. But yeah, sorry, nothing yet that I know of. Next question from Sonal Prabhuni. I have been told before that I need a better shape design for shading. What does that mean? Okay. Are there any books that would help me with it? The toughest thing is to bind the vague shadows in a specific shape. How do I learn to do that? Okay, better shape design. Yeah, see, that's design in general is really hard to teach. Because there's kind of rules, but it's more about like you see something and it looks amazing just because there's just a good balance of hard edges and soft edges, and like a good balance between a lot of detail and rest areas where there's not a lot of detail, and the picture like kind of leads you through the eye with the way the shape leads your eye through the picture, the way the shapes are designed. You know, like you want to design your shapes to kind of help the gesture of the whole your whole picture, not just random shapes that are blobs that don't do anything for the composition. They all have to come together, and that's design. That's composition and storytelling. And so if somebody tells you that you need better shape design because you have vague shadows, that probably means that your shadow shapes aren't contained enough. And what I mean by that is you probably have kind of shadows just kind of like smeared around, but nothing really like nothing specific. So let's see, my face right now. Like this eye socket is kind of in deep shadow, right? And so you can kind of like scribble in some dark values in there, but it'd be much better if you design the shadow shapes around in here that show like the bottom of the lid, and then they kind of wrap around and go under the white part, and then wrap around the lid in here, and then back around into the eyebrow, and create better edges between all those shapes, rather than being really vague with it and just kind of scribbling tones. So make sure your shapes are designed around the form that you're drawing, so they really show the form, and they're also helping guide the eye through the picture. So there's a lot of things that you can think about, but those are just decisions that you make. If somebody said you need to improve your shape design, it's probably because you're not even making decisions. You're being random with the shapes that you're putting in, or you're just copying, but you're not copying. You're not maybe copying it accurately enough and not specific enough. So, hope that helps. If it doesn't, submit a follow-up question. John Jones, should my obsession with drawing necessarily have to compromise other areas of my life? Mainly talking about my compromising college education. Thank you, at Proko forever. Well, college, no, it shouldn't. What?
Think about that one for a second.
Yeah, I had to think about it. Like, should it? I mean, wait, no, I'm changing my answer. Yeah, it should have to compromise some things of your life. You can't do everything. You have to pick what you're focusing on. But I don't think it should compromise your college education. Like, you can go to college and learn something else. Like, you don't have to study drawing and painting in college unless it's a really good drawing and painting school. Then yes, do it. But if it's not a good school for art, don't study art there. Take something else. Take like business or anything else that you're interested in that it could be like a backup or something that just develops your mind, right? Yeah, take that and do study drawing and painting on the side, but not too on the side. If you want drawing to be a career later on, then make sure you give enough time for that. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about like decisions and priorities in your life. Like those are things that those are decisions you should make for yourself. But just know that if you're not putting enough time into learning how to draw, like you're not gonna get much better. Okay, there's people that are putting in, 50, 60 hours a week learning how to draw. Like they're gonna be better than you. Okay, like it's just gonna, unless if you're putting in 10 hours a week, you're not gonna be as good as the people putting in 50 hours. So just know that, and then make your own decision. How to build your visual resources. Well, the way I do it is I have 2 buckets, I guess, of like places where I throw stuff. I have Pinterest. I have some private boards where I just like throw my own stuff in. Just things I really like to see. Maybe I'll use it sometime as inspiration. But I also have just on my computer a folder with an artist per folder, right? And if I find an artist I really love, I try to find as much art by that artist and I throw it all into a folder. And so I have a folder of like 100 artists and a bunch of art by them. And it's just stuff that I love. And so if I ever need inspiration, I just go back to that and use it. And I think you should do the same. If you ever see something that you really like, save it, put it aside, have a bucket where you're throwing these things in. So that's how you build your visual resources. Unless you're talking about building your visual resources in your brain, then you just do it by looking at things, I guess. All right, done. Should you do gesture drawings with animals, plants, objects, etc.? Will you ever do lessons on that? And are there any good sources on this? Yeah, you should do gesture drawings on that stuff. I mean, whenever I draw anything, I'll usually start with like a gestural lay-in for it. Even if it's a tree, I'll probably start with like the curvature of the tree with the way the branches are kind of going, and then start building from there. With animals, yeah, like one of the funnest classes I've ever taken is going to the zoo and doing gesture drawings of the animals, because they don't sit still for you, and so you have to, it's a great challenge, and it's fun because you're at the zoo. But yeah, maybe something that I've always wanted to do is like really study an animal for a few days, like all the anatomy of that animal, and then go to the zoo and draw that animal, and then the next week study another animal, and then go and draw that animal, and just kind of keep doing that. That sounds like a lot of fun. I never got to do it though. I would just kind of go to the zoo and draw stuff. But yeah, absolutely. Gesture applies to anything. Oh, questions are building up. Thanks for the pose set answer. They're all very helpful. New question is, how did you meet James Gurney? When did I meet him? Yeah, we were at a plein air convention, and he actually recognized me, which was amazing. I was walking by, and we were out, kind of with a painting group. And I was walking by, and he was painting, and he like called out my name, and I was like, "Holy crap, that's James Gurney!" And then we just started talking, and yeah, now we just kind of communicate through email and stuff. Is that? Oh, okay. This is how did I meet James Gurney? Cool. There you go. Another question from Stoopcheck. Also, are there any good places to buy bigger than A3 newsprint for that good old charcoal drawing? A3, is that 11 by 14? Can you Google A3? A3 size. The biggest paper newsprint size I've found is, I think, 18 by 24 inches. I know you can buy like rolls of newsprint, but it's only like 18 inches wide, and so you could do 18 by whatever you want. But you don't really need anything bigger than 18 by 24 for newsprint. Oh, actually, you know what? There is bigger than 18 by 24 because there was a class we did once where we did like giant. It was like twice as big as 18 by 24. A3 is 11 by 17. Oh, okay, yeah, there's definitely bigger than that. Yeah, 18 by 24, and then there's one even bigger, but I don't think you can buy those at most stores. You probably have to order it online or something. From Olga Karakoti. When doing studies in black and white, for example, a photo of flowers of different colors, what is a good way to identify the different values? It seems like different color value appear different under the same light. Example, red appears darker than green. Okay, I think I know what you're saying. Yeah. Color has three properties to it. Okay, there's the hue, which is like what you normally think of color. You have red and yellow and orange and green, blue, purple. Those are hues. That's like shifting across the rainbow. There's also the saturation or the chroma. That's how gray or full color it is. So you got your brightest red. It's like neon red, like if you had a red light bulb and it's glowing red. That's as bright as you can get. And then you can go all the way down to like you go through like muddy reds, brick red, and then you get all the way to gray. You got that full spectrum of saturation and chroma of that red. And then you got the third property of color, which is value. So red can be from bright red to gray, and then you can shift all of those from dark to light. So you can have your muddied brick red as a really dark brick, or you can have it as a really light brick, and it's still a grayish red. So you got those three properties, and you can shift them in any way. And so the way you judge it is to it's at first it's very difficult to see the value of the color. But here, the best way to do it is probably from photos. From real life, it's hard to test yourself. It's hard to really see if you did it correctly. So print out a photo in color and also print it in black and white. And then put away the black and white one. Don't use it as a source. And try to copy the value of those colors. Try to make your brain see what value those colors are, and then check your drawing with the black and white version that you printed out and see if you were able to translate the color to the value correctly. Because all you're doing by translating to black and white is you're taking that value property of the color. So you're ignoring the hue, you're ignoring the saturation, and you're only looking at the value. And it's kind of hard to ignore hue and saturation, but mostly hue. It's kind of hard. It's like you see red, and all you see is just it's red. Like, I don't know how dark it is. It's just kind of a red. But the only way to train yourself to do that is to test yourself. So yeah, printing out a photo and actually seeing if you did it correctly, probably the best way to do it. All right, John. From Linda Matsumoto, how do you animate Skelly in your videos? I don't animate Skelly. I have a great team of a lot of skilled artists that help me make these videos. We actually have like 3 animators that work on it. Sometimes we assign different shots from an episode to different animators, and they work on it. They send it back, and we critique it, and we tell them what to change, and then they change it, and it's done. Some of the simpler animations we'll actually do those, like if Skelly's just like bending down and side to side, we'll animate those. We use Maya. That's a 3D program. We also use ZBrush to sculpt the muscles and the bones. But yeah, I don't animate them. 3D artist, a bunch of 3D artists do that. Just like anything else is animated. Makoto, how important was the Watts Atelier in your development? Really important. I was there for like 10 or 11 or 12 years, something like that. Yeah, I was pretty much studying there full time. So absolutely necessary. Yeah, it was my home for a very long time. Let's see. Next question, Danilo Trinidad. Proko, I need to improve the values on my compositions. I'm studying the Golden Age illustrators now. Cool. How do you have, or do you have any other sources or artists to look at for improving the values in composition? Yeah, I do. NC Wyeth, Norman Rockwell, but you don't even have to study illustrators. You could study some, like a lot of the modern fine art painters are pretty much illustrators. Like some of the ones I mentioned earlier, Morgan Weisling, Z.S. Liang, me and C2, like their fine art paintings they're full-on illustrations. Like they tell a story, they're giant. You can study their values and their composition. And again, like I said, Repin, he's good. But what was improved values? Yeah, just a good master. Studying the masters is probably the best way to learn composition. And what you should do is find a painting that you like by these guys, and do value studies of those paintings. So simplify their shapes, simplify their painting into basic shapes, like it's a little puzzle, and just see how they played with their values and the shapes to tell a story. Not with literal things, but just with shape and value. How does it make you feel just by looking at a blurry version of their painting? That stuff is important. So yeah, how do you study value? Is pretty much just studying these great masters. Hey Stan, I'm addicted to your web series. Cool. Question: you listed contemporary artists, but are there any classic artists that you particularly like, and what have you learned from them? Depends on how classic you like. You talking about like the Renaissance? Personally, I prefer for paintings. I prefer more modern painters. Not necessarily living, but like within like the last 100, 200 years or so. I just think that it's improved since then. I mean, like, I love all those guys, but like Michelangelo, for example, like to me, a lot of his figures just seem really bubbly, and I kind of don't want to study anatomy from his paintings. I think a lot of the modern artists are better at anatomy than him, even though he was a pioneer. Things have improved since then, and so I kind of want to study from the ones I prefer. But like a lot of the Russian Academy people from back in the day, those are really good. Among my favorites, like I mentioned, Ilya Repin. Just look up like Ilya Repin's student work and like the what is it called? The Russian State Museum, the Tchaikovsky Gallery. Like look up those museums and try to see the paintings in it. They're all amazing. And what have I learned from them? Oh, geez, I learned composition and probably storytelling. Mostly though, it was like technique, looking at the way they put down paint and trying to mimic that. The way they played with color, the way they design things. Yeah, and I use them for inspiration a lot, because it's like whenever I look at those paintings, I get really inspired to do something, to paint on my own. And so I would paint on my own, and I would always have their images in my mind, and I would try to do something like them. So yeah, just inspiration, and then just, you know, the fundamental stuff as well. From Aklimaya Williams, thank you for pronouncing my name so nicely. You're welcome. Will this session go up on YouTube later? I must attend to my kids, but I don't want to miss it. Yes, it will. It'll be on YouTube. Marcelo Briseño. Hi, first I want to thank you, our awesome artists. Your videos really help me improve. Question number 1 is favorite snack when drawing? What?
What's your favorite snack?
My favorite snack?
Do you snack when you draw?
No, I don't snack when I draw. I starve myself. Sometimes I mean, now I'm married, and so I'm forced to eat, yes. But yeah, before I was married, I would skip meals. I would starve myself. It's not good. I'm not suggesting you do this, but I don't have a favorite snack. Probably just like tea. I would have tea while I do stuff.
Is that a common problem?
What? Common problem for artists?
Yeah, like they forget to eat.
Probably. It's probably a common. Yeah, I mean, artists aren't necessarily the healthiest, so. But it's not a good thing. You should exercise every morning, stretch, and eat food. Question number 2. Do you recommend using 2H pencil for detail, face, and comic books, and the external line, HB or soft color? 2H, I never go all the way down at 2H. The lightest I go is HB. I just don't see a need to go any lighter. Like I could use an HB pencil and put down a stroke that I could barely see. And I can get real detailed with it. So yeah, I don't go, and 2H, it feels like I'm scratching the paper. It feels like I'm actually ruining the surface with it because it's so hard. So yeah, HB all the way to 6B. Sometimes in some brands, if you go farther than 6B, they actually start putting different materials in it, like wax or something, and it looks completely different. So if you mix like their 4B and their 8B together, they don't mix very well. So be careful with that. You don't want to ruin your drawing. But usually HB to 6B, if you just stay in that range, you've got the full value range and you're good. All right. Have you learned something new recently about human figure or drawing in general? Yeah, all the time. I mean, right now I'm doing an anatomy course and we're going really in depth with it. And so every lesson, like through the research phase, I learned something new about it. Like today, for example, we're working on the model, the 3D model of the serratus muscle right back here. And it actually goes all the way up here. It's underneath all this stuff. It's covered by other muscles. But if we're making a 3D model of it, we kind of have to do everything, right? Not just the parts that are showing. And so we were looking at the very top digits of it, and it was really confusing the way the muscles attached to the bones. And so we had to do some research about that. And then, yeah, I learned how that muscle connects to the body. Not very useful information when drawing the body, but you know, I learned it. So yeah, I learn new things all the time. I don't know everything, not even close. Carlos Bergfeld. Can you recommend a complete exercise for beginning to draw the figure from imagination? Specifically for comic artists. It wouldn't matter for comic artists or for anybody else. But in addition to figure drawing, of course, looking for simple starting point like flour sack, stick figure, but with a way to check my work. Huh. So drawing from imagination, but with a way to check your work. That's tough. I mean, if it's in your mind, how do you check it? The only way to check your work, I think, is to show somebody else and see if they see anything wrong with it. So post it to the figure anatomy board on Facebook. I know of some exercises that will help you invent, and that's to train your visual memory. There's a bunch of exercises. So one, look at a photo, like an actual photo of a pose, and just stare at it for a minute. Try to memorize it. Put it away and draw it. Give yourself like a few minutes to draw it, and then check. That's going to do a few things. It's going to embed the human body into your brain because you're really focused on memorizing specific parts of the body. And then by actually putting the photo away and trying to draw it, you're reaffirming that information in your mind. And so you're building that 3D image of the body in your mind. As you do this more and more of different poses, your image of the human body just gets more and more detailed and more accurate. So yeah, look at a picture, study it, put it away, draw it, take it back out, check your work. Another one is look at a photograph and attempt to draw it from a different angle. So that forces you to imagine that body from something else. So you're not just copying, you're actually creating something. The only way you could check to see if you're accurate with that is if you actually had a photo of that model from a different angle. So I don't know where you could get photos like that, but there are like photo reference sites where you could buy poses of like turnarounds of models. So that could be useful. Yeah, so those are good exercises that we've done in class, and they really help you create things. or draw the body from imagination? Good question, thanks. We only got 10 minutes left. Oh boy. Let's see, something from someone that hasn't asked. Jennifer Page. Do you deal with artist block, bad drawing days? If so, how do you get through them? Do you have any art exercises for when you don't know what to draw, when you're stuck on a piece? Do you keep going and see what happens, or take a break for a bit? Yeah, I actually, if I have artist block or it's not going well, probably take a break, go for a run or something. Like, I haven't been creating much of my own art recently, so I haven't dealt with that. But when I was painting a lot regularly, I would take breaks all the time and just like maybe go walk my dog or anything, just get away from art for a little bit. And then when you come back with a fresh mind, you might, it might help. If it doesn't help, then you just got to battle through it. You also have to learn, like, if you're a professional artist and you have artist block and you have a deadline, like, you have no excuse. You have to be able to battle through that artist block. So maybe look at like master painters, get inspiration from other artists. I know that always inspires me to look at the masters. Something to go off of, because if you're just looking at a blank canvas, sometimes it's hard to create something out of nothing. So get some kind of idea from someone else and make it your own. Yeah. A lot of competing art. This is from Itamar Gutman. A lot of competing artists seem to turn to teaching at some point in their career. Do you think it happens because they like passing on their knowledge, or because it's very hard to generate proper income from purely doing art? Probably a little bit of both. I mean, I know for me it's both. Like when I was teaching at Watts Atelier, it was a job. I loved to do it though. It was very rewarding. I don't really do a lot of things I don't like. So yeah, I liked to teach, and the reason I'm still teaching is because I really like to do it. It's rewarding. But also because, yeah, it's additional income that helps to when you're an artist. But it's not just that, it's also like there's advantages to teaching. Even if you're not getting paid for it, like if you teach a friend a concept, you are learning it better yourself. You're forced to really think deeply about the topic in order to teach it to somebody. You have to simplify these concepts and explain it to someone. And if you don't completely understand it yourself, then you can't really explain it. And so you're forced to like kind of go back and relearn it a little bit. I know when I started teaching, I got much better at my own art because I really started to narrow in and fill in the gaps of my own knowledge, because I had to. Like if somebody asked me a question in class that I didn't know about, I had to go and figure it out and then go and teach them. Otherwise, I'm a bad teacher. So yeah, it's it puts pressure on you to improve and to really learn things deeply so that you could teach others. From Blink Snicks, if you were given a free month and $10,000 to create anything you want, what project would you pick and why? A month and a project to create anything you want, but only have 10,000. It's 10,000. Yeah. I'd probably sculpt something. I'd get like a giant thing of clay and just like start sculpting stuff. Probably don't need $10,000 for that. Something cool that I've always thought of is actually kind of before even creating the Skelly app, I thought it would be really awesome to have a toy, kind of like a mannequin where you can move it around, but it would actually have like memory in the form. So if you move it, the muscles would deform properly. That sounds really impossible, but I always imagined it and I thought it would be really cool. So I would put that $10,000 into developing this special material that has memory. That was stupid.
They weren't expecting that.
They weren't. I mean, what would I do? A month and $10,000. I'd probably just donate it. Hi Stan, any tips on foreshortening? Oh yeah. Think two-dimensionally first. Foreshortening is such a 3D problem that most people forget to step back from the 3D aspect of it and think two-dimensionally. So if you're drawing the shape of my hand like that, okay, look at the big shape in here. It's kind of oval, but it's really flat. The height from here to here and the width from here to here, like observe that shape first and like draw that big shape and then put in the stuff inside. And that'll help. So think two-dimensionally, then three-dimensionally within that. Because if you think three-dimensionally, sometimes it's like you'll be drawing this, but you'll end up drawing this. You just won't push it enough because you didn't measure the big shape, right? But if you measured the big shape, you would know that this was really short and this was really wide. So yeah, with foreshortening, stop thinking 3D in the first stage and then add 3D after. That's my tip. 2 minutes left. Should I advertise something? No, I'm just kidding. You guys pretty much know. Go to Proko.com, buy everything, and learn. No. Yeah, more 12 days of Proko coming. Make sure to visit the Proko.com/12 days every day for the next 12 days, and you'll get something awesome every day. Let's see. What's the best question left on here?
There was that one that the guy resubmitted.
Resubmit previous question. Okay. I was asking, how does an animator today get work? Oh, okay. I know that it isn't financially possible to live off YouTube.
Unless you're PewDiePie.
I live off, well, I don't live off of YouTube. I mean, I live off of mostly the premium, people buying the premium content, not advertising. But I mean, it's still like YouTube sells my premium content, you know? So you could live off of doing stuff on YouTube and then like on your own website as well, on top of that to generate income. So I'm wondering, how would one live off of their animation work? Jeez. You freelancing? You mean you have to, like, if you're just trying to create your own work and then like make money off of your animations, it's gonna be really hard. The only thing I could think of is like if you're really good and you have a good a big following, you could probably do like a Kickstarter and say like, I want to make a feature film and I want to animate it, and then see if you can get it kickstarted, and then, you know, there's your funding. Other than that, like, go to places like Upwork.com, which was Odesk before, they just changed the name, and like put your portfolio in there, look for freelance work. That's how I hire my animators. You know, they freelance, they make money, and, you know, find a studio. Like, I don't know, I've never worked as an animator, but figure out where you're needed and then fill those needs, I guess. And maybe ask a successful animator this question. They'll probably help you much better than I can. Is that it?
There are a few more stuff.
Yeah.
But
let me
like
see
one
this
more.
one. I saw the word breasts. How do you think about Michelangelo women figures drawing technique? Breasts especially. Did you notice his man-like style? What does that mean? You mean his women look like men? That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like I don't really like Michelangelo's anatomy because they're all really bubbly and like even the babies are buff. Like his babies could beat me up. They're so strong. Like what do I think about it? Like I don't really like it. That's it. We'll end with that. But especially breasts. I don't get what breasts have anything to do with that. Thank you guys. It's 5 o'clock. I gotta go make some videos for you. So thank you for asking all those questions. They're really good. It was a lot of fun. Keep checking proko.com/12days for more awesome stuff. And if you didn't see, recently we published some more pose sets just a few days ago. So I know a lot of you have been asking for more pose sets, and so those are out there. We got 3 more models, so proko.com/poses for that. Yeah, thank you for all your support, guys. Thanks for watching.
More 12 days to come.
More 12 days to come. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.